So Dr. Lora Becker is a professor of psychology and director of the Neuroscience program here at UE. She earned her Master of Arts in Psychobiology in 1995 and PhD in Behavioral Neuroscience in 2002 from Binghamton University. She teaches a variety of neuroscience topics at UE, including sensation and perception, neuropharmacology, neuropsychology, and a variety of special topics courses, including neuromechanisms of stress and resilience. Dr. Becker has published primary research in the areas of stress response and developmental effects of phytoestrogens. Her neuromarketing work has benefited several local Evansville companies, and she has been recognized at UE with the 2017 ICANT Prize, the 2009 Dean's Teaching Award, and the 2002 Dean's Student Advising Award. Dr. Becker serves on the executive committee for several national neuroscience organizations, Faculty for Undergraduate Neuroscience, and NeuroSci, the Honor Society for Neuroscience. She is the president-elect for the board of directors of Phi Kappa Phi, the oldest, largest, and most selective academic honor society. It is my honor to present Dr. Lora Becker to share her presentation on the neuroscience of stress and resilience during a COVID-19 holiday season. Dr. Becker.
Hi, well, thanks everybody for being here. Wow, who's talking? Is that me? I was talking to a friend recently that I do some marketing work for, and I told him the topic, and he said, oh, you mean the stressing on wellness. So I added that as my second name, because even though it's a stressful time, it is holidays, it is COVID, we're gonna work on resilience. This is actually a second round for a talk like this. In 2013, there was a lunchbox series at the University of Evansville, and I did stress and resilience during the holiday season. And let's just add more onto that. Now, that's several years have passed, and there's a lot of new information to share. So let's get going. One of the things that let's see if I can get going. Let's see if I can get my slides to change. Hey, that worked. One of the things that I think makes holiday season so stressful is our traditions. We have family events that we do. We have foods that we have to prepare, things that we've passed down from generation to generation. And it reminds us of the season we're in. It reminds us of our time. Traditions are pretty important to us. Today, I saw this in ACE Notes. So it's entering in a way I don't want it to enter, of course, because that's stressful. But there is a group on campus who is asking for students to make videos of their holiday traditions to share. So this just reminds me how critical traditions are for us, how that tells us about the passage of time. It brings us together. We feel it's very important to have these. So where do traditions come from? Well, we have social contracts with each other. We all gather together in one spot for Thanksgiving, even though that green Jell-O that my mom makes every year is sometimes left in the fridge because we forgot about it. We have these norms, we have these established events with our family. So I have a little story to share that is about a tradition that maybe we didn't need to have, but we do. So I don't know if you've heard this. I tried to look it up on the internet to find the official story, but this is what I remember, the pie baking story. So a mother was sharing with her daughter how to make the traditional family pie. Very, traditional story. This was handed down by her mom. I'm going to show you how to do it. Once they put all the ingredients together, they put it in the oven, and mom put in an extra baking sheet on one side of the pie pan. That was her mother's secret to the great pie. This is the tradition handed down. Well, The next year, the grandmother was there and the granddaughter was making the pie for her grandmother. And the granddaughter put the pie sheet under the baking sheet under the pie. And the grandmother said, "Why are you doing that?" And she said, "Grandma, that's the secret to the pie." And she goes, "No, my oven's been off kilter for years." So sometimes we have traditions that we're not sure why we have them, and we continue with them. So why? Why through neuroscience do we keep these traditions? Why do we do this? Our brains are wired to be social. So, a couple of examples. Mirror neurons. We have neurons that wire in our motor cortex, that those motor neurons tell our bodies to move. But when we're watching somebody else and we see them doing a movement, that part of our brain will light up too. The best example here is someone sticking their tongue out to a baby monkey, and the monkey sticking his tongue right back out to the person. So parents out there will know you can get your infant to mimic your facial expressions. I have a fond memory. I was sitting with my dad in a doctor's office. I had broken my leg in college, and he took me to go see the doctor to get my cast checked on. And there was a baby who was starting to fuss. And he started making googly faces at the baby, and the baby started making googly faces back. And my dad taught me about mirror neurons 10 years before we had actually seen the wiring of mirror neurons in the brain. Mirror neurons allow us to do things like observational learning. Now, this is not exactly the type of observational learning we want to happen. What we're talking about is when children mimic what the parents are doing, or when you're trying to learn a new sport and you're watching somebody else do it and then you learn it, or younger children learn from their siblings. This is so hardwired in what we do. We want to act like other humans act. So a little aside thought is, future parents out there, current parents of young ones, if they want to help you with a task, give them a little job to do beside you, because they are craving, our brains crave doing what other humans do. If you're savvy about it, you can trick them into mowing the yard because you're mowing the yard and they want to help. Okay, don't put a toddler next to a mower. That's dangerous. But if you put a little toy mower there or something like it and let them mow the area that your power mower is not in, then they may, and then reinforce them, of course, they may get the idea this is something really fun and they want to do it. Now, I don't know how well this travels through puberty in the teenage years, but start them early. Observational learning. We want to do what other humans do. This is part of our social contract. And then that leads to habits. So we're watching what other people are doing. It's hardwired into our brain for our brains to respond to what other people are doing. We take the cues from our environment, we do these activities, they become part of our routine, they become comfortable, they become natural. That gives us a reward because we feel good for doing it. And the cue comes back up again, and that's what we do. Now, some of these habits are perfectly fine. Hygiene habits, perfectly fine. Some of them become problems. The reward leads to an addiction. This is why addictions are hard to break. And some of these become our traditions during the holidays. And it's just a habit to make that green Jell-O, even though nobody eats it. It's a reinforced action of ourselves. So as we're working with these habits, and we've got these ways of doing. I remember what I wanted to say right there. Could you tell I forgot? We do gain habits pretty easily, except the ones we want to gain, like, not eating cheesecake anymore or going to the gym 3 times a week. Those can be harder to get into the habit. Some habits, through unusual times, we find a way to break. So one of the seniors who's in neuroscience right now is on the swim team. Her family home is in Spain. And during COVID, she went home, and as Spain got hit very hard, she was literally in the apartment for 5 months. Here is a Division I swimmer who couldn't swim for 5 months. We Zoomed back and forth to finish off classes in the spring, and she's getting a little anxious, right? Here's an athlete who can't perform. Well, she comes back to UE this fall. She's in senior seminar and decides for her senior thesis that she's going to do a topic on habits and how they get shifted through athletics, how you train an athlete. And what she found was those 5 months off from swimming, she could break some of the bad habits that she had in the pool, and her coach could help her get to better movements. Now, let me reinforce this a little bit. She's been swimming since she was 5. So yes, we are wired to make habits. Yes, we can break them. Sometimes it takes unusual situations to do that. But her thesis was going to be awesome because she's learning about the wiring diagram to make habits and how to shift those. So we've watched from other people what to do. We've had our brain stimulated because of it. This is making habits. What happens when life gets in the way? When life changes? One of my favorite lines from rock and roll music is, "Nothing is permanent, but change is." Change brings about stress because things are different than our habits, what we've learned through observing people, what our brains are telling us we should be doing. So I'm going to take a little bit of time here to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the human stress response system. Not favorite like I want to cause stress on others, even though I'm a college professor, so I guess that's part of my job. But there are ways to understand our stress response system so that we can work with it and understand ourselves better. So why do we have this? That would be great if we didn't get stressed out. Well, we have this so that we don't get hurt. We don't want a situation where we walk up to this cute little fuzzy creature and go, "Nice kitty," and it's a saber-toothed tiger. That's not a good idea. One of my favorite neuroscientists is Robert Sapolsky. And one of his first books for the viewing public is Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Okay, zebras can get ulcers. They're not like the cure for ulcers or anything like that. But what he means by the book title, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, is because in nature, stressors are supposed to be for the immediate time that there's danger. And then you run or you hide or what sounds like some safety things that we do now, that allow you to get away from that danger. That's what our system's been built for. But we as humans have this ability to stress ourselves out for years. Are we going to have a job? Are we going to have enough resources? My poor students right now, it's registration time. Am I going to get my classes? Am I going to be able to graduate on time? And yet still, in this new world of COVID, am I going to get to grad school? Is grad school going to want a researcher right now? Am I going to be able to have a job? So we can carry on our stress much longer than our nervous system was built for. When we carry it on for long periods of time, we start to see damage to our bodies, damage to our minds. So let's get into a little, I keep forgetting where my mouse is, sorry. A little bit of the system. Okay, we have a stressor. The brain picks up on that stressor through our limbic system. I'll talk about limbic system a little bit later. And it sends a cascade of activity through the nervous system. The system on this left side with the anterior pituitary, the pituitary hangs off of the brain at the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus runs a lot of our internal systems. That pituitary releases hormones that goes down to our adrenal glands that are right above our kidneys. And it stimulates the outside of that adrenal gland, the cortex, which releases glucocorticoids, or cortisol, you may have heard it called. That signals back to the brain and is supposed to tell your brain, hey, we've got the stressor, it's been activated, you can calm down now. But we're humans, and so we keep stressing about things and we keep adding to those things. Glucocorticoids can then actually damage areas of our brain that we use for learning and memory, which is called the hippocampus. Little fun fact, when I'm describing the hippocampus to students, I say, well, it'll help you remember. And if you see a hippo on campus, you'll remember that. They get it right after that every time. So these glucocorticoids do alert our system and allow us to respond to the stressor appropriately. They change our heart rate. The heart rate goes up so we can get more blood to our body. Glucocorticoids help expand the lungs so we can get more oxygen in so that blood can be more oxygenated. It helps shift where the blood flows. So your blood goes more to your muscles so you can run and leap and get out of there, as opposed to your gut so that you digest. You don't need to be digesting when you need to run and hide. Unfortunately, that sometimes leads to things in your gut escaping your body rapidly through one of two spots, and I'm sure you can follow that. So if you ever feel sick to your stomach, you're so anxious, you're sick to your stomach, you've got a great big glucocorticoid response going on. So that's the left side. That's a stressor and the brain telling this cascade to release. And like we said, these glucocorticoids can go back and can start damaging what's happening. What about this right side? It looks nice and green and it is a lot happier. So the left side we call the HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. The right side is called SAM. You know, like Samwise and the Lord of the Rings, and a really good guy to have around. SAM because it's sympathetic adrenal medulla. Now, when there's a stressor and this green side starts, the sympathetic nervous system stimulates the core of the adrenal gland, the medulla, and that releases two neurotransmitters, but in the periphery of the body, they act like hormones, norepinephrine and epinephrine. And when these are released, yes, you do get the change in blood flow, you get to be able to run to safety, but they also boost your immune system at the time. Glucocorticoids don't. Now, they don't cause the damage to the brain, and they don't do as much harm. Well, what we've learned is there are certain triggers that either turn on the HPA axis or turn on the SAM system. You want to know what they are? Here we go. Here's the scenario. Let's use a teaching scenario. Professor walks into a classroom and hands out a new assignment. And the professor says, all right, here's your assignment. It's a hard one. I mean, I've given this for years. People really don't do well. I'm just waiting for a time where someone's actually going to be able to do this. But, you know, I've been giving it for years. I'll give it to you anyway. I don't expect a lot. I don't know if you can actually do it, but here's your assignment. That type of messaging, that type of, this is going to be hard, this is going to be horrible, and you're not going to do well, actually triggers the HPA axis, which can lead to all that damage I talked about. Other scenario, professor walks in and says, all right, I have a new assignment for you. It's challenging, but I think you can do it. I think you're smart enough and you have what it takes to dig in, find the answer, and solve this. When you do that, you activate the SAM system. Actually, you get far more success out of the students when you encourage them that by activating the SAM system as opposed to the HPA axis. Okay, is anyone thinking about like an old management style of, oh, you've got to show me that you can, yeah, that wasn't good. Now, not that we need to do the total opposite end of spoon feeding the answers to folks. Challenges are important in life. Getting the stress response system active can be beneficial, but an encouraging environment is the way to be able to handle a stressor better. Okay, a lot of you are no longer in the classroom. So how do we apply this when it comes to our challenges in life? Things that are coming up to us and we have to solve them. Think for a second about what you tell yourself in your mind. Oh, this is impossible. Or, hey, this might be a fun challenge. It's how we address that stressor that makes all the difference. Stressors are going to happen. Life is change. Life is stressors. So there is one piece of resilience for you about handling life changes. Here's another. I referenced the limbic system. Here it is. Here's that hypothalamus that sets off the stress response system. Here's the hippocampus. It looks like a little seahorse in a sense that helps us learn and memorize. This limbic system also regulates a lot of our emotions. So the amygdala right here looks like a little almond. That's why it's named that way. Actually is our spot in our brain, our little spot in our brain that notices threats. I call it the rage and fear spot. So when you see a stimulus and all of a sudden anger comes up or all of a sudden fear comes up, that's your amygdala doing its job. It's noticed that stimulus, that it's scary, and we need to do something about this, which starts some of the cascade for the stress response system. Side note, notice how this amygdala is right next to the hippocampus. And if you see a hippo on the campus, you'd remember it. So the hippocampus helps us with learning and memory. This is why Many times in our life, we have be able to remember when we've been wronged, when we've been hurt, when someone has attacked us, when we felt attacked or afraid in a situation. Okay, I can point out the rage and fear area of the brain. I can't point out a happy, happy, joy, joy area of the brain. We don't have it. There isn't a happy button. There's a reward button, but it's not happy. It is, that's a good idea, do it again. Okay? So we start off all of our lives with this limbic system that is pretty hardwired. That's how we survive as babies. We can't say, "Excuse me, Mom, I'm hungry." We cry. We can't say, "Excuse me, Dad, I'm a little cold." We cry. We can't say, "Hey, I'd like to get out of my crib and walk around." We cry. So the limbic system is definitely wired so that when something is bothering us, we will express ourselves. We will express that emotion, and the adults in the room need to figure out what we're talking about. Later on in life, we develop the frontal cortex. I mean, we do have some frontal cortex when we're born, but that's the last part of our brain that wires up, that becomes fully adult. Actually, the frontal cortex doesn't finish that first push of development that started in the womb until we're about 25. So I always tell the students, you are in college at the best time possible. 18 to 21, you're learning these great new things. You're helping that organize your frontal cortex into social behaviors, social facilitation behaviors, being able to see empathy, be able to understand what the other person is thinking. It's brilliant, brilliant time. And as we do that, as adults, this is where what I call adulting, is when you can move away from just reacting to the emotional side of your brain that's been running since you were born, and start, as I say, literally throwing those ideas up to the frontal cortex, especially this orbital frontal cortex, prefrontal cortex, because that's where we have our empathy wired in. That's where we understand social behaviors and social situations, and we can start constructing ideas and ideals on how we want those social situations to turn out. Okay, so we do have areas of the brain that this prefrontal cortex does actually wire into the amygdala, and they crosstalk to each other. It is one thing that we have really started to understand is with personalities, we talk about extroverts versus introverts. It turns out that brains of folks that score very high on introversion have a thicker connection between the amygdala and the frontal cortex. They can think through and find the things that could go wrong or all the things that could happen. And if you're score high on introversion and you get overwhelmed very easily and you don't want to be around a lot of people because there's a lot of stimulation, it's because your brain is wired to think through all the things that could happen. I, on the other hand, happen to be an extreme extrovert. I don't have a huge connection between my amygdala and my frontal cortex. I'll go try it anyway. I can think my way out of it. Yeah, and COVID's hard on extreme extroverts, so little pity point there. So as we develop, we have ways to talk, have our frontal cortex talk to that limbic system and turn on the SAM system, have more positive things to say, some more good outcomes that could come from this life change, as opposed to the HPA axis, which is going to say, oh, it's going to fail anyway. Why bother? Oh, this is going to be horrible. Oh, this is going to be hard to do. Okay, so we have two ways to look at stress so far, and we have different areas of the brain that can help us regulate the messages around that stress. Now, we also have a hormone that is on our side for social interactions, and that's called oxytocin. And it's a neuroscience talk, so let's put up the chemical formula. It's kind of cool, huh? So oxytocin you may have heard about. It's hit the news a lot. And it was first labeled the love hormone. Well, why it was named the love hormone is it was first studied in voles, not rats or mice, but voles. There are two strains of voles that are very much alike, except for how much, and I'm going to change the name to vasopressin, they have in their hypothalamus. Remember that hypothalamus is going to be in charge of a lot of the physiological actions of the body. So what they were able to find out with these voles is the two strains. There's a prairie vole and a mountain vole, or montane if you want to be fancy. When the prairie voles meet to mate, they will mate for 3 days, and then they will pair bond for life. And they have a lot of this vole oxytocin, which is called vasopressin. The mountain voles, when they meet to mate, they mate, it's over with, they go their separate ways. And they have very little of this oxytocin substance in their brains. So researchers said, oh, well, it's the love hormone. The prairie voles fall in love and the montane voles, they don't care. Well, we started looking some more and found out that in humans, you get huge doses of oxytocin when you do things around pair bonding, serious, critical pair bonding. So, with orgasm, with lactation. So, mom gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning to feed her infant, and oh boy, is that irritating. But then there's a huge release of oxytocin, which pair bonds her with her offspring. Isn't that great? We all survived nursing as a child because our mothers got an oxytocin surge. Same with giving birth. Giving birth can be very daunting. I don't know, I've never given birth, but I've heard. And you get a huge oxytocin surge. On a little sidebar, that's one reason we think postnatal depression happens, is not the shift in hormones related to giving birth and being pregnant, but how much oxytocin is being released. So we're tying now oxytocin to antidepressant effects. Now, these were pretty intense activities. If you're trying to just get a surge of oxytocin for social bonding, wow, those are pretty intense. We have also found that lower levels of oxytocin are released in humans with simple touch. So a massage, a hug, holding hands, things like this. Not a good message to be saying during COVID, right? Don't go out and hug everybody right now. Not a good idea. But those people who are in your group that you have during this COVID time, it's going to sound hippy skippy, but make sure you hug them. You know, give them a pat on the back, touch them, because that will release oxytocin, which allows us to be connected and feel connected with each other. Couple more. What we have are finding is these even lower levels of oxytocin that's released facilitates social situations. It increases trust. It allows us to express more empathy for the other person, bringing about social cohesion and group building. This is why we all go eat pizza together to get a student group together. You're there, you're close to each other, you may even hug hello or shake hands, things like this. But careful during COVID, right? Only in your group. Also, it supports already made relationships. It leads to secure attachment, relationship fidelity. So in a married situation or in a best friend situation, allows people to, again, build that trust and empathy so that the group stays together. Oh, look at this. Oxytocin reduces fear and stress response in social settings. There's actually a seesaw going on in our bodies. The more oxytocin we have, the less glucocorticoids we have. The more stress response we have, the less oxytocin we have. These are in competition with each other. So one way to increase our oxytocin is to have a social group, to have traditions around holidays that we do. So that's another reinforcement of why we have these traditions, why holidays are so important. And like I referenced before with the idea about postpartum depression, antidepressant-like effects through prosocial behavior, oxytocin up, depression down, stress down. So we are learning so much right now about this hormone that our brains release that makes us social creatures, that allows us to come together and build traditions. We touched on where those traditions come from because we have learned from our parents and their parents about what we do at this time of year. We want to come together at this time of year because it's getting cold, it's getting dark. Coming together makes us feel safer. So what do? How can we keep our holiday traditions in a time where we can't just invite grandma to the house? How do we have resilience in this time where our habits are broken, our routines are run into and not allowed to happen, and our traditions are not going to be able to be held like we want them to? Well, let's use some of the information we've heard so far. I have some questions. When we have a tradition, what does that tradition represent? Yes, there's green Jell-O, but what does mom making that green Jell-O represent? Well, it represents a habit. It represents love. It represents bonds. It represents some sort of social identity that we have this green Jell-O salad. But dig in. Why do you put up X many Christmas trees or lights? Why do you make mashed potatoes and mashed yams? I know families who do that. And what is really needed? What are we really representing here? how can we keep the feeling of society, bonding, togetherness, identity, but not have the risk? An example, this year my mom turned 90. There was no way that we were going to go to her house and have a 90th birthday party. She does still live at home. That's pretty awesome. And she said, I am going to be happy on my computer. And so we came to her over the computer and had a Zoom birthday call. And she got to see her grandchildren and ask some questions, and it was great. And she got a recording of it, which made it better because now she can watch it anytime she wants to. So technology can be good and allow you to still have those bonds without the risk. And then, so we can totally use the SAM stress response system. What new traditions can come from this time? I'm finding things in my classes that I'm doing different, and they're actually better in some cases than what I was doing before. So what new traditions can come from this time? What have we hadn't had a chance to challenge before or question before? And how can that help us? So that's my idea on resistance in this time and in this space that we're in right now. And I am open for questions. I don't know that I can see the questions.
Feel free to put your questions in the chat. Oh, there we have one. Cindy, do you want to unmute and ask your own question?
Hi, Dr. Becker. My question is about oxytocin. I'm wondering if there are other ways to build up oxytocin or the other, like the benefits of it without touching each other. Because that's something we're struggling with at work right now as well, is like not, I mean, I have one coworker that we hug anyways, even though we're not supposed to. But yeah, that's my question.
So, yeah, because what you're getting is it's not like you're not getting a magic thing that goes from one person to the other. The oxytocin doesn't travel from one to the next. So things like heavy blankets, weighted blankets, help give that pressure to the skin that gives you that sense that you're getting touched. I am thriving because I have a dog and a cat in the house, and they come and bam up against me, and I'm like, oh, at first I'm like, oh yes, okay, this is good. You want to come and say hi to me? So yeah, heavy blankets, even just, it's gonna sound a little silly, but holding your own hand, it's totally fine. And then I didn't have space or time to put it in here, but there is a whole new area coming out about movement and how, well, think about it. Before we had cars and before everyone had horses, we walked and moved and did. And there's more and more articles coming out saying that being physically active, not running marathons, but being physically active, walking, actually does more for depression than antidepressants. Yeah, so get outside and walk. You can be 6 foot away from whomever and enjoy it.
Thank you.
A question from David Diaz, and David, feel free to jump in if I mess this up for you. But he asked if there's a fine line between addiction and more healthy bonding behavior, and is there any different mechanism?
No. So the reinforcement that we get for our habits and the reinforcement that we get for bonding is the same reinforcement system when it comes to addiction. And thank you for that question, David, because I hit my trifecta. I always talk about rock and roll and sex and drugs, so you've got me onto the drugs. So not that it's funny, but what we tend to see is when a bonding situation or a need for a substance like alcohol or nicotine or something like that, when that gets to harmful levels, so a person is not safe anymore, they're not holding down their job the way they should, or they're not treating the people around them the way they should, that speaks to something missing in their life. They need that reinforcement as a substitute for something else. It could be a self-esteem issue. It could be a brain wiring from development issue, and that's harder to crack. That's harder to crack open. But it's good for the person, one, to seek a counseling situation, because these are trained folks. I'm not a trained counselor. These are trained folks that help people get to the core of the problem. Like I'm kind of asking here, what's the tradition really mean? And can you reinforce that meaning without actually doing the thing? So what does that tight bond actually mean for the person, and what's the root of that issue? Did I address the question that you had?
I think so. Is dopamine a common substrate here? And
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
I'm just thinking of medicinal treatments, and we run into problems with that sometimes.
And so that's a hard nut to crack, because a substance that increases your dopamine, it's one, a habit to use a substance, and then when that substance also increases dopamine, it's a double whammy.
So things like methamphetamine and stuff like that can do it, but also more conventional psychotropic agents like bupropion. So it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just judgment involved.
And if someone needs to, check out from life, what about life is giving them that stressor, that's how they're trying to solve the stressor, as opposed to literally going after the thing that's stressing them. We humans are really good at self-medicating. What we choose as our self-medication can be either good or bad. So if the choice is, wow, I'm stressed out, I'm going to go take a hike down at the levee, that's good, because you're actually moving your body and you're actually doing things that are moving you further away from depression and anxiety. But if the choice is, this is water, but I'm going to drink this substance and this substance makes me feel better, that doesn't lead to the best judgment calls and it actually harms the body. Our bodies we self-medicate to get rid of the pain of the stress, but our bodies don't understand the secondary effects of all that. It doesn't see that far out.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions. Are there any other questions for Dr. Becker?
Let me run back quickly through my PowerPoint, because I put my Come on, go back. Why is it not going to the first slide? Ha, that's funny. That's another coping strategy. When something stresses you out, learn how to laugh at it. Laughing actually reduces your stress because it puts more oxygen in your lungs and allows you to relax. So my email is lb47@evansville.edu. If someone has questions beyond this time that they don't want to ask out loud, feel free.
That's fantastic. We are recording this, so we will be able to send it out to anyone who maybe missed the lecture. So possibly they would be sending you questions as well.
Great.
Well, thank you so much. I found it really fascinating to learn about nursing and oxytocin and some of the information that you went over. It was really eye-opening for me, but I think you did a fantastic job, and I'm sure everyone here was happy to be here.
And the last little bit I have is I've been lecturing on stress for over 20 years, and it's hard to not stress about things. I have not managed to be stress-free ever. So don't put the weight on yourself that, oh, now I have this information. I have to do it right, because that's just stressful. Right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. It was fun talking to you through the screen.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. I will send you the transcripts from the chat. So any notes that they left, you'll be able to see those, and I'll send you a copy of the video when it's finished.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.